biotech alumnus, Mr. Farid Zulhazlami Hajami, in the house to deliver the talk. So a very brief introduction about Mr. Farid Zulhazlami. He is currently an environmental executive at Perunding Najna Sembilan Berhad. Yeah, as I said just now, Mr. Farid is our alumnus, our biotech alumnus. He holds a Bachelor of Science with honours in Resource Biotechnology from UNIMAS and graduated in 2019. Is it correct, Mr. Farid? 2019?
Yes, it's correct. Correct.
So, yeah, it's such an honor to have our alumni back in the house to share their journey after their graduation. So, uh, at Perunding Nasional Sdn Bhd, Mr. Farid is responsible for handling EIA related matters. So having said that, he is the right person to talk about EIA and share what EIA is all about to all of us today. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Farid to deliver his talk. You may share the screen, your slides, Mr. Farid.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kim, for the introduction. So today I will talk a little bit about the introduction on the environmental impact assessment. So, okay. Can everyone see the slide? I think, okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So today we'll talk a little bit the introduction about environmental impact assessment for the student. Okay, so a little bit of background also has been said by Dr. Nashikin just now. My name is Farid. So I'm a Bachelor of Resource Biotechnology with honors, also from UNIMAS So I'm basically the alumni. So right now I'm working as environmental executive at Pending National Berhad. Okay. So for a little bit of introduction, what is EIA here? EIA, in a sense of word, it is a systemic process where we identify future consequences of a current or proposed action. That one is a straight definition lah. So for EIA itself, it is actually a process in ensuring that all environmental components are taken into account in the early stages of any project during the planning phase. Normally lah, we have a process where we take into account any environmental components before any proposed project is being carried out lah. So it takes into consideration impact such as the biodiversity, socio-economic, aside from the technical and economic consideration as well. This one I'll be detailing further later on. Alright. Okay, so while we conduct EIA, okay, the first objective here is we want to prevent or minimize any potential adverse environmental impacts, as well as we want to enhance the overall quality of the project. Okay, so inside the EIA later on, we should identify, describe, and also assess the direct and also indirect effect of a proposed project based on the following factors normally lah. So we have physical, chemical environment, which are environments such as the soil, the water condition, and also the air and noise. Okay, then we also have the biological environment, which comprises of a flora and fauna section lah. So finally, we will have the human environment. This human environment consists of socio-economic, cultural, and land use. So these are what the components that should be included inside the EIA lah. The factors that shall be taken into account. So the benefit and advantages of the EIA, these are the benefits and advantages lah. The first one is shall lower the cost of project in the long term. These are predicted benefits. And then we have increased acceptance of the project by the public normally lah. And then we want to improve the design of the project to take into account environmental matters as well. Okay. So these are normally the objectives of the EIA while we conduct the EIA lah. First, we want to ensure resource conservation. This one include natural resources as well as other resources lah. Normally, we take more consideration into natural resources lah as they are diminishing as the years goes by lah. like the timber, the water, and the flora and fauna as well. We need to take that into account because they are diminishing as we know nowadays. Then we want to minimize the waste generated by by the project later on. Waste can come in many types. We have solid waste, we have scheduled waste. If these are not minimized properly, then we're gonna have uh, some problems major or minor. So we have example in our own country lah. I think in 2019 where we have that uncontrolled discharge, illegal discharge of scheduled waste, which pollute one of the biggest river in Malaysia lah. I think you all know that problem. Then we also want to make sure the recovery of byproduct is able to be carried out if there are any byproduct that can be recycled, recovered again to be used. Then we want to make sure the efficient use of equipment, which equipment like the construction equipment lah, like the vehicle. We want to ensure all these construction equipment are being used efficiently and take into account what they are having on the environmental as well. Then the most important thing, we want to ensure sustainable development. Sustainable development is uh, development which is sustainable, like the development can be sustained. It does not destroy the environment so that the environment can be used again again in the future. Okay. So moving on, these are the main topics of today lah. After the introduction, a bit of slide. Now we move on to EIA in Sarawak lah. So I'll be focusing the EIA in Sarawak as in Malaysia we have a different type of EIA in different I think different states lah. So I'll be focusing on Sarawak. So in Sarawak, the process of EIA is monitored by the Natural Resources and Environment Board, or short form of it is NREB lah, and also with association to Department of Environment to a lesser extent lah. Okay. And this process of EIA, this NREB, they are consulted based on the Natural Resources and Environment Ordinance 1994, not 1993. I think that I made a typo there. So, based on this Natural Resource and Environment Ordinance, it also stated that in order to carry out EIA, only environment firm and also personnel must be registered with either NREB and ODOE before they are allowed to carry out EIA. So, here we have the NIB EIA process flow chart, which I will be talking about a little bit of this lah. I'll be detailing one by one lah, the step. So the first process of EIA, we have a screening process. In the screening process, it is a process to determine whether the proposed project or activity requires any EIA, because there are some projects they require EIA, some does not require EIA as it may not pose an environmental impact. So screening it need to be carried out first because there are lots of projects going around every year, every month, every day. There's a lot of projects. So normally the NIB they refers to NREO lah, the Prescribed Activity 1994 for project that requires EIA. This one you can further your reading later on. So I just put on the example of project that requires EIA. These are based on the Prescribed Activity 1994 lah. So we have here agricultural development. Example, we have oil palm plantation. We have all these large or small to large scale plantation lah. All of them need EIA normally because the impact shall be very significant to the environment. So also we have logging. We also have development of commercial, industrial, and housing estates. These are normally development construction of buildings, high-rise buildings. they are under EIA as well lah, because it impacts the environment as well. So then we have extraction and removal of rock materials, and also and mining lah. Is mining and then facilities for disposal and treatment of waste. These are some of the example of the project that requires EIA lah. There are other projects that requires EIA based on the prescribed activity. You can you can further reading there if you are interested to see the other prescribed activities lah. But there's a lot of prescribed activities there lah. Alright. After the process of EIA, uh, after the screening process, if the EIA is required, as stated by NIV, if they require the EIA, so a project proponent normally they need to find, or they need to appoint an environment consultant which is registered with either NIV or DOE, as I stated before lah, in order to proceed with preparation of terms of reference. So terms of reference. So I'll be short form it to TOR when I talk. So the term of reference, what it should highlight on the components that will be emphasized or will be further studied inside the EIA later on. So here are the TOR and what is the component that should be put inside lah. So I'll just summarize them. So first, we need to have the background, which are the project background normally. What are the project concept and activities, which mean, for example, we have a road project. So we need to know the concept of the project. How is the construction road of the road to be carried out? What are their activities? The activities for road normally such as we have laying of PMIX, we have installation of guardrail, installation of safety signage. All of these need to be included inside the TOR lah. Then under the background as well, we need to have the existing environment. Existing environment, if you are not familiar with the word, it is actually the existing condition lah. What are the condition of the area where the project will be developed? What are the existing condition before the project has started? So we have to detail that out based on study, or based on your desktop study as well, or based on other relevant sources lah. Then we move on to the potential impacts. These are the second component that need to be highlighted inside the terms of reference lah. Inside the potential impacts, the consultant normally highlight potential impacts that shall be imposed by the proposed project or the project during the project implementation later on. Okay, so example of impacts, we have normally soil erosion and sedimentation. We have impacts to hydrology, to the water quality, impacts to the air quality, and also impact to the human environment lah, impact to the human or the settlement nearby the proposed project, nearby the project area, where we need to identify later on the impacts. Then we need to draft out the work plan. The work plan include the timeline of your study. What are your team members? Who are your team members? And what are the process that you will be doing for the study? And then the task completion means you need to have your study schedule, your schedule until the completion. And it must be very, I mean, realistic lah. So must not be too long and not be too short lah. Okay. The scope after the terms of reference has been drafted and submitted to the NEB, we will be moving to the second phase of the EIA process lah, which are the scoping. Okay, so scoping, it is a meeting between government agencies, normally NIB and other relevant agencies lah, if they are attending the scoping meeting, with the project proponents, which are normally mediated by the environmental consultant lah, in order to discuss on their proposed project. Is inside the scoping meeting, what they are discussing is on the proposed project, which are based on the terms of reference as prepared by the consultant before. So inside the meeting, the thing that will be identified here are here are some example lah. Normally, they have the boundaries of the AI study. Boundaries of the AI study is how the area of your study, how much area you will be covering for your study. Starting from your project area lah. Normally, we will consider 3 kilometer to 1 kilometer to 3 kilometer radius for our study lah to make that is mean the general acceptable boundaries lah for the study. Then the government agency will also highlight any important issues and concerns that they have with the proposed project, and the proponent as well as consultant will try to clarify with them on what are their idea on resolving these issues and concerns. And also they will highlight any information that are required by them. For example, maybe they require the water catchment area at the project area, and to identify any sensitive receptor at the project area. Okay, then maybe the government agencies also they will highlight on the consultant to focus on the significant factors and effects of the project to the environment. And then there are other arising matters, all will be stated inside during the scoping meeting lah, to get the attention of the proponent and its consultant. Okay. Okay. After the scoping has been carried out, and if there are no other debatable or missing thing inside the terms of reference, so the NIB will allow the consultant to proceed with the preparation of EIA. So, components of the EIA, what are normally inside the EIA? So I'll just briefly state what are the components of the EIA lah. These are the component of the EIA also as mentioned inside the prescribed activity, but under the second schedule of the ordinance lah. So these are normally the chapters that should be included in the EIA study lah. So we have the introduction, we have the project description. Introduction is normally just to introduce what are the project, introduce what are the project proponent, who are the consultant, and a little bit of the background of the project lah. So under chapter 2, project description, here the consultant normally highlight or state all the relevant component of the project, like their activities, the concept, and all the design of the project inside this chapter lah, as to give an overall impression to the readers of the EIA on what are the project going to be. So next, for the existing environment, here the consultant will highlight or identify the current condition of the environment. As I said before, the 3 components, the physical-chemical, the biological, and also the human environment before the project has take place at the area it is supposed to be. And after this existing environment has been detailed, the consultant will move on to the environmental impacts and mitigation measures, whereby they will the consultant will identify what are the impacts that shall be imposed by the project to the environment, and also prepare the mitigation measures in order to counter those impacts, as not to give very major consequences to the environment. So that's why we need a personnel which are very versed in every aspect of the environment. So after that, The consultant will also proceed with the monitoring and auditing plan, whereby they will propose how uh, how the NIB shall monitor the project to ensure they follow the mitigation measure as stated inside the EIA closely. So normally we have the EMP and EMR. This one I'll be highlighting later on in the auditing and monitoring part of the EIA process lah. And then we have the conclusion, which will wrap up the study lah, to either conclude that the project will not have significant impact to the environment. So then, after the EIA report have been finalized and submitted to the NIB, we'll proceed with the evaluation by the internal and external review panel. Okay. This internal and external review panel normally consists of government agencies, which are normally we have Sarawak Biodiversity Center, we have the forestry, and you also have the IBEC, which are at Unimas lah. Normally we will also be sending them to IBEC as well lah, to obtain their comment. Economic Planning Unit Sarawak, Department of Environment, and of course NIB itself. This evaluation by internal and external review panel, they will take into account all of the matter inside the scoping meeting I said before, making sure that consultant has highlight or address everything inside the scoping inside the EIA study, so that the EIA study is considered very thorough and very good lah, for very good. So this review may take about 1 to 2 weeks lah, depending on the project itself lah, and depending on the evaluation by the review panel, how long they are reviewing. Okay, after evaluation, normally they will come up with 3 decision lah. 3 decision. Okay. So the first decision, they may revise the EIA. Why are they revising the EIA? Because it does not address the major component as stated by them inside the scoping report. So they need the consultant to revise the EIA. Also, the second decision, they may also ask for the addendum, whereby the EIA have highlighted some part, all part of the component, except there are some information required later on lah. I mean, during their evaluation, they found out, oh, they need this information inside the EIA. So that's why some EIA need to be addendum, where we add some information and then we resubmit lah. And then the third decision, they will approve the EIA lah. So these are the general process tree of EIA lah. So normally before this evaluation, they will also have physical confirmation on site lah, which they call it as ground truthing lah, whereby they want to confirm the condition on the site, whether it is based on whether it tally with the one mentioned inside the EIA study. Okay, after the evaluation, then for the EIA approval lah. When the EIA is approved, NIB will submit or issue a letter of undertaking with the environmental condition that have been drafted by them, which need to be fulfilled by the project proponent. So what the project proponent need to be doing? They need to adhere with all the environmental condition as attached inside the letter of undertaking. So how the NIB going to make sure the proponent is adhering with the environmental conditions? So they issue another process, which are the auditing and monitoring part. This auditing and monitoring part is a process to ensure the project proponent or its relevant third-party contractors lah, if they have any third-party contractors, are being responsible and adhering to the environmental conditions as mentioned inside the letter of undertaking, which they have issued during the AIA approval stage. So this auditing shall be reported by qualified environmental consultant as well. So in the form of following report and proceed until the completion of the project. So we have environmental management plan, which is once off. So the more important one is this environmental monitoring report lah, which is done quarterly. So every 3 months, an environmental consultant will audit the proponent site and give the report to NIV so that they know this proponent are following their condition as stated before. So until the completion, so when the project has reached its completion, so end lah. So that's all the end of the EIA process 3 lah. So okay, so this part I'll just briefly show you what are the activities that we'll be doing inside our study lah. So in the first and second page, these are example of when we're doing the water sampling where we want to identify the current condition or the baseline of the water lah, whether it is polluted or not. So normally the parameter we use are the physical chemical one lah, the biological oxygen demand, the chemical oxygen demand, the total suspended solid. This one I think you all have studied inside your course lah as you go along with your course. So at the third picture, we are doing third and fourth, we are doing our air quality. These are when we measure the quality of the air surrounding the area of the project lah. We want to make sure the air is not polluted lah. And then for the fifth picture here, we have the noise sampling, where we want to make, we are checking on the noise level at the proposed project. Here are EMF. EMF is a bit tricky, and EIA study normally don't emphasize on EMF. It is only used as one of important parameter inside transmission line project lah, where we use EMF. So here we have some example here as well. These are the biological study lah. Biological study emphasize on the area under project area there, and then we identify the flora that are available at the area and the fauna that are available in the area where the project will be carried out. So we will identify and class them, whether they are protected or whether they are endangered. This need to be highlighted inside the study lah, so we can prepare a proper mitigation measures to the proponent. So here I think we have picture one, we have the oil palm plantation here. Here we have a squirrel and we have a frog. Here are some of the example of trees lah that we identified in one of our projects lah. So next, this one is for the human environment. I just want to give you an overview lah. So for the human environment, normally we need to go to any settlement nearby the project, identify them, go and talk to the people that are residing at the area lah, which are nearby the project. Question them, obtain their input on what are their perception of the project, whether they approve them, whether they reject them, and what are their concern, what are their suggestions. So inside the study, we will take into account all of their concern, all of their suggestion, and try to develop a proper approach, so that they will be more acceptant of the project as to. So these are some of the example lah. So I think that's all lah for the introduction to EIA today. So thank you. So any question?
Right. Thank you very much to Mr. Fari for a very informative talk. Yeah. I just refreshed my understanding on EIA again, because the last time you gave a talk was a year ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now we open the session for question and answer from the students. So if you have any question on EIA, please forward your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself So, Mr. Purdy, I have a question. So just now when you mentioned that one of the objectives of the EIA is to minimize the waste, isn't it? Yeah, this one.
Yes.
So is there any standard outline concerning the, for example, the amount of waste or the type of waste, how much is not desired, something like that? So what is the standards look by the EI consultants?
Okay. Okay, thank you for the question. Okay. So the standard normally lah for the waste, they have they will have a diverse type of waste lah. We have a diverse type of waste. We have this, I mean, we have this solid waste. We have vegetative waste, and we also have scheduled waste. Okay, to highlight to you for the scheduled waste, normally the EIA consultant will take will refer them to the environmental quality schedule waste regulation as proposed by the Department of Environment. If you want to check on that, you can check on their website. There are one of their regulation there, which detail what type of schedule waste, what number they are, because they are classified into a lot of number lah. They have schedule waste 1, 2, 3, like that lah. Schedule waste is waste that cannot be, just want to detail to you lah. This schedule waste is a waste that cannot be disposed of improperly. It is normally consists of chemical things which can be harmful to the environment and also to the human. Uh, so this scheduled waste need to be properly disposed lah by qualified waste receiver. So in Sarawak, just to give you an idea lah, we have the Trinacans lah, the Trinacan waste, yeah, and also the DBKU. They are one of the integrated waste management which can receive the scheduled waste for disposal lah. Okay, for the vegetative waste, we don't have any standard to quantify or to determine when is too much, what is too much and what is not too much lah. So normally the NIB for the vegetative waste, they need the proponent to try to reuse that vegetative waste however they can inside their project area. So for I think for example lah, you have the trees that has been cut down at that area. What you need to do with that waste, you try to compose it uh, naturally lah. You cannot the no the most the thing that you need to avoid is open burning lah, not to burn all the vegetative waste. So for the project as well, how they gonna control this, they also have their design lah normally. So this design, I think, I'm not sure, but for the vegetative waste, it's like that lah. We don't have any standard. Only scheduled waste, we normally have standard on how we want to dispose them lah. So I think this answered the question lah. Thank
All
you.
right, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, we have a question in the chat box from Muhammad Azri. May I know if there is any collaboration with any bodies or companies to fully utilize the waste? That's a very good question.
Okay. I tell you, for the utilization of the waste, okay, like I told you just now lah, for the vegetative waste, normally lah, if you can recycle, you need to recycle for the project component itself. If you cannot, then you try to send to any companies that can make a compost or recycle them into a more productive waste lah. This can be detailed inside the study where we determine what we're gonna do with the vegetative waste. Normally, vegetative waste, we can use it as a vegetative cover, where we cover the exposed area with this waste so that the exposed area, when it is raining, like if you see at the hilly area, if you left if you left the barren land, I mean there is no plant there without any vegetative cover, soil erosion, soil erosion is likely to occur lah, which we know nowadays there's a lot of uh, soil erosion activity. So to utilize the waste as well for the scheduled waste, that's why we have just now companies such as Trinacred. These companies, they will take the scheduled waste and they will try to convert them into a reusable product lah, to be used again. So, however, these companies need to be fully licensed lah. Okay, I think that's answer your question lah on the collaboration.
Yes. Yeah, great. Okay, any more question? This is the chance for you to ask an industrial expert, yeah, about EIA. EIA is something like, it's something related to assessment of the environmental impact. Yeah. So I'm not an expert in EIA, so Mr. Farid is the one that you should ask at this time. Yeah, about EIA. So Mr. Farid, just now you mentioned that in terms of the decisions, there are three decisions, right? Either
Yes.
it's the project need to revise, or the project need to improve something, like they have to address main components. So
Yeah.
is there any, like, it means that whatever the project, there is a chance for it to improve, like it's not like straight away rejected.
No. They're given stages lah. Normally, that's why they do the physical lah. The physical ground treating this one, the physical survey of the site before they approve your EIA. Because normally the EIA, it should be done at early stages. That's the
Oh.
misconception nowadays. Because
Yes.
if you do the EIA study during the construction, there's going to be a little bit of complicated problem because some of the design that they made may not be approved by the NIB,
Okay.
because there are some of the design they should not they they are not adhering to some of the regulation they want. So that may complicate things. So that's why when they go on the site normally, that's why they need this decision. Normally they want the addendum because during the EIA, what mentioned the EIA study, they found that the design is a bit different because in construction, in the design and construction of any project, at some stages there might be some changes lah, but I will not say every project have all changes lah, but some project they need to do some changes from their early design because of the condition of the site. So that's why the misconception for the EIA study, the proponent, they normally thinks that the EIA need to be conducted when they are going on the site. But actually, the EIA study, we need to do it before any project or any construction has been carried out so that we can determine what are the baseline condition, undisturbed condition lah. So that the the study will highlight or will detail everything related to the project. So if you so for this decision, addendum is a more better option lah when they decide. As when you need to revise the EIA, there are a fine lah. There are a fine will be imposed. We need to pay some fine. So for the EIA, if NIB, in current now lah, in current, if you need to revise your EIA, you need to pay a sum of around 2,000 ringgit lah. Okay. So after that revised EIA has been submitted, there are still possibilities for the project to be further revised. So this further revision will incur a multiple of the initial fine. So for 2,000, it will go to the 4,000, and then it will go to 6,000. So revised EIA is a very harsh decision. So normally the NMB, they try to avoid the revised EIA decision lah, unless the major component are not addressed. So I think that's for the answer lah.
Yeah, yeah. So means, let's say let's say even after approval, after the project has been approved, and then it undergoes, you mentioned just now, auditing and monitoring, right? So if
Yes.
let's say there is something not really does not comply to the whatever the standard, so is there any revision that needs to be done at that stage?
Okay. For that question, it's a good question. Okay. So if during the auditing,
Mm.
when they see there are some non-compliance with the environmental condition,
Mm.
normally, they will issue a letter uh, and highlight what are the issues that need to be resolved by the proponent. So before the next auditing report, like I said, this EMR quarterly, right? So before the next report has been submitted, the proponent need to make sure all of the problem that are mentioned inside the letter which they submit must be rectified or must be addressed properly lah. If during the second quarter or when they are doing their field visit, this one is site visit. Normally they nowadays the NIP they are more active lah with the site visit. So when they found something they are not complying with this condition they are proposing, maybe they will ask for the proponent to provide some letter first on what are their decision to improve on their current condition, which are not which does not comply with their condition as stated. But there are to some lesser extent where they do this field study, their site visit, and they found out that there are some part of the project concept that are different from the EIA. So they will propose or they will ask for the proponent to carry out another study lah, which are the EMP. This EMP will be like you call it as a supplementary EIA lah, just to address the EIA. So it will cover the EIA for the concept because there are some concept that are deviating from the original concept of the EIA. Uh,
Yeah, interesting. Interesting to know that. Okay. No questions from you guys?
any, any other question?
Yeah. We should take this opportunity to ask Mr. Farid, no? Okay. Mr. Farid, what yeah, have being apa ni alumnus private alumnus, and then you enter the industry. Uh, what is your opinion about like the preparation of fresh graduates, since these students the students today, they are going to graduate, after this semester. So what would be your advice to them, yeah, in order to prepare themselves for the workforce, for joining the workforce?
For
Okay.
the for that advice, I just strongly advise. My advice is for the environment for the graduate when they are going into the workforce. The first thing they need to do is on their own. I think we call it as the public relationship lah. You cannot be too afraid and you cannot be too confident lah inside doing your when you are joining any workforce lah. You need to have a mindset where you are ready to learn new things because I'm mentioning it right now lah. Thing that we are studying inside the in university is just I mean it's just a stepping stone like just a basic idea on what you're going to do during your workforce. So what are you studying? I can say maybe it's only 30 to 40%. Another 60% you need to learn during your time when you are starting your career. So for the advice, so you need to let go of any of your I mean, you you cannot you can I know you need to you have your qualification. Sometimes you have a good qualification, very good resume, but still you need to prepare yourself for the work, for your career, because your career, it does not depend just on your qualification lah. So most probably for the fresh graduates, they need to have a mindset to be able to learn more, to keep learning, because keeping yourself to learn something means you are improving yourself, so that you're more experienced as times goes by lah. So that's my advice on the fresh graduate lah, because
Okay.
I'm also I'm also a past alumni from Unimas lah. So
Yeah.
that my advice lah.
Yeah, that's a good advice. Yeah, I like to listen or to be reminded of that advice. Okay. So since there's no more questions, okay, so I think we can wrap up the session today. Thank you very much again to Mr. Farid for your availability to be with our biotech students. We'll be back in the campus. We really appreciate that, and I hope that to having you again next year for the next batch, right? And also thank you very much for your warm advice to the students. I hope that the students feel more motivated, yeah, to look for your next undertaking after your degree, right? Right. So, is it possible to have a group photo, guys? Those who are interested to take a photo, a group photo, at least you can turn on your
Share
camera.
the screen.
So maybe if you is it possible, Mr. Farid, if let's say the students want to ask something more, they can email you, maybe? They are so shy
Yes, sure.
to speak up today.
Okay, no problem. You can email me lah. I think can I leave my email here lah.
Yeah, maybe someone who are interested to be in the same field as Mr. Farid after this, right? I mean, like after you are looking for jobs related to environmental management, yeah. So maybe Mr. Farid would be able to give some tips and tricks, yeah, on for you. Okay. So can you guys turn on your camera? Are you available? These people need number. You can see your number only, you know. Ini saja lah nampak muka tu. Ramai ke ni Farid dekat your company daripada Unimas?
I think for me, I only have one alumni as well lah, but she is more senior than me lah. I think,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but there's some lah.
Hmm. Ini je ke? Okay. You masih dekat hostel, masih dekat ni. Tak bangun ke tak ni lagi, tak ready lagi. Tunggu sampai satu screen ni penuh 2019 you graduate So dah berapa tahun? 3 tahun?
3 tahun. But
Oh.
right now I'm doing my master there as well lah. I'm doing my SLUS there.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm doing my
oh
SLUS.
okay. Serius. Oh,
Yeah.
baru start?
Yeah, this based on pass. So I'll be
Oh.
graduating I think next year lah. Right
So
now,
serius you take like during weekends lah?
yeah, weekend.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Pack lah juga kerja,
Hmm.
weekend kerja.
Boleh lah. Masih tu kan masih muda lagi. Masih boleh tahan lah nak ambil tu SLUS.
So, oh, serius tu related jugalah kan, environmental
Yeah.
management kan?
SLUS memang related lah dengan environment.
Oh,
So
okay. That's a very good ni lah, a good bonus
Kalau yang
kan.
this apa this batch they're interested, I think you can try to apply for those lah.
Yes,
That's
yes.
good. It doesn't take much of your
Mm,
time because it's on the weekend.
yeah.
Uh,
So just were interested to take MSc after master after your first degree ni, there are options master by coursework. Yeah, SLUS. It's like environmental management course. Yeah, at faculty. So you can look for it. Yeah. So apart from master by research, if you don't want to do master by research, you can do for master by coursework. Yeah? Okay, we take this picture lah. Okay, right. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I nak paste the picture. So. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everyone yang sporting. Turn on the camera. Okay. All right. Thank you again, Mr. Farid. Yeah. Looking forward to having you again for the next year, for the next batch. Yeah. It's a
okay.
very good opportunity to have a sharing session from our own alumnus. All right. Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
So thank you very much again. Yeah. Assalamualaikum. Have a nice day. Oh
Okay.
yeah, those yang tak attendance lagi tadi. Okay, you can scan now. Yeah. So those who have scanned, you may leave. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Welcome.
Doctor.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah. Welcome.